and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Eric. Good to see everyone here this morning. Be myself and Supervisor Humphrey this morning only. And so we'll proceed with the work session. And we have 3 items, which probably will take hours. The shorter the agenda, the longer the meeting. That's the rule. But anyway, item 2A is information and discussion regarding proposed changes and revisions to the Gila County Ordinance number 02-01, which is a right-of-way ordinance. Good morning, Homero.
Good morning. Glad to be here again for another work session, Chairman and board members. And we are trying to take advantage of the dialogue that happens at these work sessions. One of the things that I wanted to say is I was mentored once, 60 font, 5 pages, 30 minutes, okay? And I'm going to try to live to most of those, but I've already failed the first 2. There's 17 slides in here, and the font is as small as 14, I think. But it's all important information, I think. So
Okay.
We'd like to share it with you. And what we're trying to do is gather the information so we can restart the revision of this right-of-way ordinance. We actually hired someone to rewrite this ordinance back in 2022. Didn't like the outcome of that write-up. It was put on hold, and it's been on hold, and we're going to restart it again. And we'll use some of that revisions that were put in place. But there's a number of permit scenarios that have come up since 2022 that we would like to see addressed in the right-of-way ordinance. And so we're going to be sharing those things with you today, okay? And along the way, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop me. There is some information later on that may be affected by the question, but we'll handle the questions as you present them, okay?
Very good.
And I do have a team here. The team is the Public Works team that works on the right-of-way ordinance, and you see Alex and you see Sam, our new surveyor, and Scott Uzan and Steve Williams are here today. And they played a role, and plus others have played a role in this outline of what we think the ordinance should have. So let's start with the ordinance revision. The next slide, please. Is meant to expand the scope of the ordinance in order to include permitting requirements for culverts, driveway tie-ins, and to provide a process to follow when the right-of-way work being done without a permit. When the right-of-way work is being done without a permit, we'd like to see a process for that. Permit violations, also how to address permit violations and road encroachments, and to rewrite for clarity the permit requirements for utilities to work on right-of-ways. The ordinance that we're revising was written in 2002, and its main focus was utility work in right-of-ways. Okay, it didn't concern itself with property owners doing culverts and driveway tie-ins, and so we'd like to add that to the ordinance. Let's see if I can remember how to work this. So we have some definitions, and we're going to use these definitions in our discussion today and potentially in the ordinance itself. So the first one is a right-of-way. It is the full width of the tract of land dedicated for public transportation that includes all components of the road, including the travelway, the shoulders, the ditches, and the utility area on the road. Oftentimes on our roads, and I'll probably repeat this later on, you see water meters in a ditch because the road is too narrow. And so we're putting 2 things in the same place, and that's a problem for everybody. It's a problem for us, it's a problem for the utilities, problem for maintenance, and we'd like to see if we can find a way to deal with that going forward. And it's in here in one of the slides. The other one is county right-of-ways. It simply refers to roads maintained by the county. And in the slide, you see a number of different county right-of-ways. And I'm not going to go into them, but there's county highways, there's county public roads, and there's primitive roads. Okay? Those are roads, all of them combined. We maintain all of them. So when we say county right-of-ways, we're talking about roads that we maintain. And then there's other public right-of-ways. And those are simply public right-of-ways that have been dedicated, but they're not accepted by the county and they're not maintained by the county, okay? But they do exist, okay? And the question is, what do we do with those public right-of-ways? Do we do anything with them from a permitting standpoint? And we're gonna address that in some of the slides here. When we use the word public right-of-way, and I'll probably use it and then at what it means, it's all public right-of-ways, whether they're maintained or not, okay? And a public utility company is a public service corporation recognized by Arizona Corporation Commission via a certificate of conveyance and necessity and/or a license by FCC to provide telecom services. So when we think of a utility, we're going to think of a utility in that way in this PowerPoint presentation. And then right-of-way encroachments, we're going to talk about encroachments, and I just wanted to try to define it. It's something that impacts the ability to use the right-of-way as a two-lane road at the posted speed limit. And your input now and along the way will help with the rest of the presentation. Okay? So far, so good.
Supervisor
Okay,
Humphrey, so it's a work session, so jump in anytime.
I had some questions, but you said there'd be slides on it later, so I'm gonna wait for the slides later, and I checked them, and if I don't get my answers slides later, then I have marked which ones I have questions on.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I have no questions either.
So on the next slide, it talks about who needs a right-of-way permit and when are they required? And the short answer is anyone working on a public right-of-way needs a right-of-way permit. And so the list is public utility companies, property owners, commercial property owners, and those are the groups that we're going to be talking about in the rest of the slides. But anyone working on a right-of-way needs a permit. So I wanted to just share some things, and I know that we deal with public utility company franchises separately. Clerk of the board handles those franchises, and we recently approved 2 of them. But I just wanted to touch base because I think what's included in that franchise agreement is very important, and certainly Public Works needs to take advantage of what's in those franchise agreements. But the franchise agreement grants a utility a license to use public right-of-ways, okay? And later on, we're going to talk about what does that mean? Does that mean county maintained roads or all public right-of-ways? For the purposes of this presentation, when we talk about an ability of a franchise public utility company using the right-of-ways, we're gonna say it's all public right-of-ways, whether they're maintained or not. And later on, we'll seek legal counsel to the county attorney and or consultants, and we'll figure out is it really what is meant by a public right-of-way in the franchise agreement and in the state statutes or not. Are we just limited to county maintained roads, or can we require a right-of-way permit for franchises on all public roads, okay? And again, in this presentation, it assumes that it's all public right-of-ways, okay? And those things can be easily changed. We just say, no, we want to go this way, we want to go that way. When we think about what we're talking about here, it's all when we're going to require a right-of-way permit from franchise public utility companies on all public right-of-ways, okay? So we started the franchising back in 2016. And today we have 27 plus franchise agreements, water, electrical, and sewer. And the elements of a franchise, if you were to read the franchise agreements, and you have, it's a very powerful document. It talks about insurance and talks about indemnification. It is a 25-year agreement for a fee of $350. It's non-exclusive. It holds a county harmless for damages to the public utility system as a result of county maintenance or construction, and the county may request for those lines to be relocated if they interfere with road maintenance. And so it's a well-written document, very much, and so is the state statute. It puts the burden entirely on the utility company for any expenses, okay?
So, Homero, if I could interrupt, you might be coming to this, so tell me you're coming to it. But what assurances do we have if a utility does something in one of the roads that we maintain and does not restore that roadway appropriately?
So one of the slides does address that, and basically, we can require them to do it. We can do it ourselves and bring those costs to them, and we can cancel the franchise agreement.
Okay.
So, public utility companies that do not have a franchise, so we have so what do we do with a public utility company that comes to us and says, I want to apply for a right-of-way permit, I don't have a franchise? Do we tell them, you can't do your work? You have to wait till you get a franchise agreement? The franchise agreements, require board approval to just post, the franchise, and it's a 3-week public notice, and then a second board meeting to approve the franchise. So if somebody doesn't have a franchise that comes to Public Work, and we say you need a franchise, then they're probably 3-4 month wait for them, okay? Or we could have something like a license that says, okay, we're gonna give you a one-time license to do the work that you've described, and it would have almost identical requirements as a franchise agreement, but on top of that, it would have an assurance for the work to be performed, a bond for the work to be performed. And we could give them a one-time license at basically almost the same cost as a franchise agreement, and really encourage them to go get a franchise agreement, okay? They have to satisfy all the requirements of a franchise agreement. But so in writing this ordinance, we're gonna be addressing that. We're gonna pick one way or the other based on input that we get today. And again, from the legal counsel input that we'll get after we finish writing the ordinance. Wanted to show you a couple of pictures. The first one shows a water tank in a right-of-way. And I'm not gonna pick on the water company. It is at a dead end. It's at the dead end of this road. This road doesn't connect to anywhere at the end. They may have been doing the turnarounds at that end of the right of way. But again, it's a utility that is in a right of way, and maybe it's been there for a long time. And maybe they did talk to the county about it, maybe they didn't. But it's an example of how utilities, if we don't monitor their work, we'll put the utility in the most convenient place for them, okay? The other one that shows Tonto Basin County Maintained Road, that's a road, it is maintained by the county. Somebody dug a trench, and the trench, was gonna be left. We found out about it on a Friday. We felt that that was a safety hazard. We took our action to, do some traffic control for it, so that it could survive the weekend without somebody falling in the trench. And then we worked with that person. It was a person, not a utility, doing the work, okay? And in this ordinance, we would not allow a person to do work, utility work. We would only allow utilities to do utility work, okay? A person, a property owner could do work in the right-of-way just for their culverts and their driveway tie-ins. But utility work on a public right-of-way would only be allowed for public utility companies. Okay? So,
Go ahead. If I may I have a question. Homero, on something like that, no matter who's doing the work, could we put something in there that they have to notify us if they are working on a weekend? So we can be a little more observant of, because nobody works on a weekend. And a lot of these things are done on weekends. So could they be asked to, on the permit, to let us know if they're gonna be working on weekends and what weekends?
exactly, if they applied for a permit, we would put the requirements of traffic control. You can't leave a trench uncovered overnight. These are typical requirements that we put on a right-of-way permit. The problem here is they did not apply for a permit. And so it was work without a permit that was taking place. Had it been permitted, we wouldn't have had a problem. First of all, we would have questioned, why is a person doing the work in a utility? Second, we wouldn't allow Friday afternoon work, late Friday afternoon work to happen without them having the provisions of steel plates over the trench or having filled in. You're right. And so When work happens on a weekend, it unpermitted, it is problematic. And we need to find a way to, when we do find out that that happened, that whoever's doing that work, and it's in one of the slides, pay double the fee, reimburse the county for any work we do, including going out there on a weekend and monitoring the work when somebody calls in. But there ought to be something that discourages people to try to do right-of-way work without a permit. Now, responsible utilities wouldn't do that, okay? The gas company here wouldn't do that. The larger electrical utility companies wouldn't do that. And but it does happen, and it is a problem for us. Okay?
So Homero, would this typically get blue staked to do this trench that you're showing? Would it typically be blue staked by a utility?
Yes, we put the burden of blue staking on the right-of-way permit holder.
So if this individual had a call for a blue stake on this trench that he dug, would we be notified of that it was permitted or not permitted, or?
No.
So he could call for a blue stake, get it, and still dig?
No, we would not be notified
Okay.
that it was blue staked, and we don't believe that they blue staked that area.
Well, that's pretty dangerous, but still, my question was, if it gets blue staked, does it require a permit to do the blue stake? No.
They wouldn't notify us, and we don't believe that they called it in.
Okay. And that's two separate, like, departments, entities, everything, to where we don't communicate with the blue stake people.
We can bring that up with them.
Okay.
To see if they can notify us for that.
Okay.
And we'll take that as an action item.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so the next slide is Allison Drive in Pine. This is a public right-of-way that's not maintained by the county. The county actually has a quit claim for this road, okay? So in essence, you could say the county owns the road, but the board has never taken action to accept this quit claim and accept this road, and therefore we don't maintain it, okay? It's a 35-foot public right-of-way, and when you think of roads in Gila County, that's a pretty wide road. However, if you look at it, there's about 15 feet between vehicles. And the other item that you look at here is one neighbor parks an RV, and so now it's okay to park a car in a county right-of-way. Then another neighbor parks an RV, and pretty soon this public road that we don't maintain, but it's still a public road, and it can be enjoyed by the people that use it as a public road, has become a parking lot, okay? And that's an issue that we see often. And you begin to see in the picture, it's not just vehicles, it's trailers and equipment and other things, okay? So we're trying to address that in the ordinance. And then in the next slide, you see a picture of South Park Road and Meats Ranch. And what you see is that the right-of-way actually extends 4 foot behind the fence. The fence encroaches on the right-of-way by about 4 feet. So when a utility company sees that and they get a right-of-way permit, they'll assume that the fence is the edge of the right-of-way, and they'll put the meter on the road side of the fence instead of on the other side where it could belong. And pretty soon you end up with a very narrow road. And water meters are a big problem for Gila County, okay? And they often encroach on the travel way. And the other picture is a picture of Navajo Drive. The company came to us to get a permit for a right-of-way. We gave them a right-of-way permit, thinking that they were going to trench some reasonable amount. This is a road that's a platted road. It is a public road that has never been built out. It's what we call the paper road. It exists on a plat. It was dedicated. In fact, this road, in essence, was accepted by the county on that plat. But we have never maintained it, and it's not a maintained road, and they don't want it to be a maintained road. But because it is a public road, the utility company came to us, we gave them a right-of-way, and they took every tree out and created a drainage issue for the people downstream. And it's us, our staff, being cognizant of that these things can happen and taking the proper precautions in the engineering drawing and the other information that's provided to us. Okay? But the utility company also should have known better. You don't tear down a 12-foot path for a trench that only requires 2 feet. Anyway, those are problems that we've encountered along the way. So the next slide is about right-of-way permit requirements for public utility companies on all public right-of-ways, new construction. And I've tried to highlight the slide with blue, and maybe I missed a few, but we already require most of these things, okay? The things that we don't require are shown in red. A license, if the board agrees that we can issue a license for a one-time use of the right-of-way where there is no franchise, and also grading and drainage permit will be required for paper roads. And we, normally when you think about work on a right-of-way, if all you're doing is you're digging a trench and you're putting the road surface back to the same elevation with no changes to the road surface, it basically says, why do you need a grading and drainage permit? You haven't changed drainage. And we can accept that logic, except on paper roads where a road doesn't exist. And so a grading and drainage should be required on all paper roads to avoid the issue of, but basically everything that you see on this slide other than what's in red is already required by the current ordinance and by roadway design standards manual. Okay. So that was utility companies doing new construction. The next slide is utility companies doing planned repairs and emergency repairs. And so the current ordinance doesn't really refer to plant repairs, okay? But instead, it requires a permit for any work on the right-of-way by a utility. So because it's written like that, staff over the many years, and I'm not talking about our current staff, but the staff over the many years may or may not have required a right-of-way ordinance for plant repairs. But we should require an ordinance for plant repairs because we want to know, first of all, we want to make sure that they have traffic control. And we want to make sure that they have insurance because some of these roads are ours and we bear that liability. And so, and we want to make sure that they are not changing the alignment of the utility, okay? And if they are changing the alignment of the utility, then we go back to new construction, requiring them to do the things that are required of new construction. So in a planned repair, we wouldn't need necessarily an engineering drawing. A site plan would be good enough. They're not changing anything, so a site plan would be sufficient for us. And it's less work for the utility, but nonetheless, we think that we should require, it should be clear in the ordinance that we would require a right-of-way permit for a utility company for planned repairs. And then emergency repairs. So the existing ordinance does mention emergency repairs. And of course, if it's an emergency, they should do the work. And they should notify us. In here, I've added 24 hours. The ordinance was unclear as to when they give us a notification. But they should notify us by phone or email in 24 hours. Actually, I think the ordinance says in 3 days, okay? But because now that the email exists, that maybe didn't exist, it's the way that it's used today in 2002, today you can send us an email and often people pick it up on their phone and we know that there's an emergency repair taking place. And then 3 days after the emergency takes place, they need to give us the paperwork that says why was this an emergency and what work was performed, the site plan, and photos of that work. And of course, all of these road repairs are not final until the county approves them, okay? So those are the things that would remain in our ordinance or be revised in the ordinance. The next slide, this is all new. The reason for the red font at the top is because everything here is new. We've had policy perhaps on how we replace culverts, but it's not found its way to any ordinance. Okay, and the policy is unwritten. Okay, so over the years, Public Works has done what the Public Works Director thinks is right. Okay, and it's changed over time, and we want to make sure that this is in writing and that we have a way to answer questions about what does the county do with culverts. Now, some counties do what's on this piece of paper. Other counties do not do anything. The culvert is at the cost at the entire cost of that culvert's on the property owner, okay? And so there's different ways of doing this, and it's board input will guide us as to which way we go. So the proposal is that, that if somebody wants to install a new culvert, and it's the owner that's making the request, because if the county wants, if our road yards want to install a culvert and it benefits the road, we don't need the owner's permission, because the right-of-way is ours. We'll notify the owner, but we can take that action by ourselves, okay? But now, if somebody is requesting a culvert, and it's a new culvert, we would allow folks to place as many as 2 culverts per parcel, and they would buy the culvert, and we would install it. Okay. If they want more than 2 culverts, then they need an engineering plan to show us why they need more than 2, and the plan needs to show us that the culverts are going to work efficiently and not cause problems for others. The maximum size of the culvert would be 18 inches, and the minimum distance would be approximately 30 feet, and the ordinance will probably make it 30 feet. And that 30 feet is driven from the roadway design standard manual that does tell us what the dimension between culverts is, but it uses you have to use math based on the size of the culvert. You're measuring to the median of the 2 culverts, and it ranges between something like 30 and 20 feet. Okay, so we would pick a dimension that says the maximum distance between the minimum distance between the culverts will be X. Today we're thinking it's going to be 30 feet on that ordinance, allowing our staff to clean out those culverts when they need to, and that's the whole driver for that minimum distance. To replace an existing culvert on a county right-of-way. So somebody calls in and says, I want you to replace this culvert, and that culvert meets the county dimension of 18 inches, then we would replace it at no cost. We would consider that part of the maintenance for that work. Ditches and culverts are an essential part of a road, okay? And water is, like I mentioned before, water is road's worst enemy. So we want the water off the road, it being carried away. And so if there's an existing culvert that meets the 18-inch requirement, we would replace ourselves. And if it's not, if it's a smaller culvert, then we would go back to the property owner, say, you have to buy the culvert, we'll install it, as if it were new, okay? If on other public roads that the county does not maintain, the property owner would be responsible for all the work. They would not be, they may apply for a right-of-way permit, but we would tell them that what they need is a grading and drainage permit to do that work, assuring us that he's not causing harm to other folks downstream and or upstream, okay, with the installation of that. So for non-county maintained roads, it's entirely on the owner's expense and would require a grading and drainage permit. So the next slide is new residential driveway tie-ins, and this is not necessarily today addressed in the right-of-way ordinance, but it is addressed in the roadway design standards manual, okay? And the roadway design standards manual, it's a very technical manual that guides folks on what to do for new road construction. And it includes driveway tie-ins. And so we would incorporate that into the right-of-way ordinance. A right-of-way permit would be required. We would make sure that they're complying with the standards manual. All driveway costs are funded by the property owner, so they're putting in a driveway, and part of that driveway is in our right-of-way, but it's their driveway, and all costs belongs to that property owner. And either the work, this is again residential, either the work is performed by a registered insured contractor, or the property owner provides proof of insurance. Property owner wants to do it, show us proof of insurance, because we're liable for that road, okay? And by the way, I'm talking about county right-of-ways in this first section, okay? In the bottom section, I'll be talking about everything else. This is for a road that we maintain, we would have these requirements. a site plan and traffic control would be required. It's our road, we have liability for it. Grading and drainage permit may be required. We've seen evidence of, or examples of where people put in a culvert or a driveway and it causes some problems upstream, okay? And we want to make sure that there are no drainage issues. It may include a culvert installation, and if it does, as part of this residential driveway tie-in, the county would install that particular culvert, okay? So then, if it's not a county right-of-way, if it's not a road that we maintain, and it's one of those public right-of-ways that we do not maintain, it would require a grading and drainage permit, okay? It wouldn't require a right-of-way permit. It does not require compliance. The way we're thinking is that this does not require compliance with roadway design standards manual. You know, we could pick the option and say, why not? Why aren't we requiring that of this residential driveway? Some counties do. Maricopa County, for instance, does. Most counties don't, okay? If we don't maintain that road, we want to be as far away from any liability with that road as possible. However, there's two sides to that. One of them is, one of these days, they may apply for that road to be maintained by the county. And so if that's the case, why didn't we require the things that we would normally require for our roads? Okay. And based on Board of Supervisor input and our legal team, the county attorney and or the consultant, we may change that over time. But today, the way this is written, we would just require a grading and drainage permit, and the grading and drainage permit would probably require traffic control as part of that permitting process. All driveway tie-in costs are funded by the property owner, of course, and including the design material and installation. Any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Something just came to my mind on the road we were discussing at East Verde Estates, Kings Road. So it's a very problematic road, drainage issues, all of that. So if we were to, the county were to take the attitude of, okay, well, these are citizens of the county that have trouble, this is a non-maintained road by the county, what can we do to help? Would that be the attitude that we would have, you know, let me show you what we can do. This is how we can accomplish a better end result versus just coming to a black and white decision of we're not going to accept that road, we're not going to do this or that. Do we have a means where we can assist? You know, there's 8 or 10 property owners there that are struggling with some real serious roadway problems.
That's a complicated issue. We are planning a work session, hopefully end of January, to talk about roads, abandoning roads, accepting roads. And today we have, because there have been some folks interested in asking the county to maintain that road, we have developed a little template that says, here's the things that you should be satisfying, and here's how this road ranks against those items. There's 2 or 3 things that really, in my mind, stand out. One of them is the traffic count. How does that road compare with all the other 750 miles of non-maintained county roads? And the other one is drainage. Drainage is a major issue, and it's a forever issue. It doesn't go away. It's not like where we can add gravel to the road. Drainage, water's got to go somewhere, and you need to know where that water's going to go when we accept the road. And those 2 things always need to be at the top, I think, of our minds as we move forward. The January work session will start with, we've been receiving, because you've heard this before, $9 million a year to maintain roads in 2007. Something like that. Forget that. And that money has not increased over time. And there's little expectation for us to expect that to increase. And so if there is an upper limit to what we can maintain, then we need to consider that in that formula of making a decision which roads to accept. Now, there may be roads that we shouldn't be maintaining, okay? And it's interesting that the Forest Service has mentioned a couple of them to us. And we're gonna work with them and with the board as to whether or not we should continue to maintain those roads. But that's something that we should be looking at, and that's all part of a much longer discussion in a future work session to talk about roads, because I think we need to have that discussion. Again, that's been left very much to a Director of Public Works to make all those decisions, and it changes with the Director. And we should have guidance on that we follow as we move forward. The only strict part about that is we don't maintain a road unless the board approves for us to maintain that road. That policy has always been followed.
Okay.
I didn't answer your question, I don't think, but
Well, no, it's not a very clear question, obviously. So let's say there's 8 owners on there. They all signed a petition. We want this fixed. And so as a particular owner, so let's say I own one piece of that and I say, well, I want to put some money toward this. It's kind of a private road. The county doesn't accept it, but it's a paper road. And so, but no one else wants to put money toward it. So nothing ever happens. Nothing ever gets done because no one can all get together at one time to do it. So my concern from the position I have would be, well, how can we best serve the public in this way? And so that was my question. Is there any means to help them facilitate a cooperation with each other to get that? That's a nasty road. I went up on it a few days ago, and it's bad. And it's like a driveway.
so King's Road, that's the name of the road, right? Kings. We actually met with those folks. I think we met with them 3 times, and one time with most of the folks that lived on the road, and the other times with just the individual person. And we did coach them on what we expected for them to do with drainage, okay? And I was joined by the road yard folks, by the surveyors, by flood control in those visits. And we kind of have laid out for them what we think should be done. The ability of one owner to convince 7 other people, that remains to be seen. I'd be willing to host a meeting with them, with the group, and try to guide the discussion a little bit. But it's a difficult thing. They all need to agree, and they all need to allow water to flow where it needs to flow.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can't find that ready solution.
Yep. Sometimes we can't fix that.
I've been to other places, I think it's Round Valley, where we have laid out what the requirements were to bring those roads into maintenance. Those are much different kind of roads in much better shape. They're actually maintained by the group right now. And it has ample easement, drainage. We told them what we wanted for drainage, and they're willing to do it. And they haven't come back to the table because the whole community isn't in agreement to do that yet. Some people don't want the road to be maintained by the county. Okay, and so they need to resolve that on their own.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Homero.
Thank you. Again, on this commercial property, right-of-way culverts, the blue is meant to show things that are in the ordinance that we can do today. And if you're a commercial property and you want a driveway, a culvert or a driveway tie-in, either or both, on a county right-of-way, on a road that we maintain, then you would need a right-of-way permit. You'd have to comply with our manual. You would need a grading and drainage permit may be required. All work to be performed by a registered contractor, and the culvert and driveway tie-in installation is funded by that property owner. This is very much what we did with the Perrys, by the way. When the Perrys came to us and they said, we want this driveway, we asked them to do these things. We actually asked them to do a traffic study as well. And they did that to show us that it was in the right place and would be a safe driveway. But so these would be, in my mind, they're already required. These should be the standard requirements for a commercial driveway tie-in and a culvert. All other right-of-ways that are not maintained by the county for commercial properties, it would revert back to a grading and drainage permit, would not have to meet the manual, and all costs are still with the property owner. We're almost there. I think we're slide 15 out of 17. And these last couple of slides are important. So the current ordinance addresses breaches to a permit. The ordinance that we have today says if you got a permit, we can, and you don't comply, we can revoke that permit. And if we revoke the permit and we have to do something on the road, we're gonna bring those costs back to you. You're gonna have to pay for reasonable costs for us to restore the road. It does not address working without a permit. It does not talk about working without a permit. Okay? And it does not have a sense of urgency when dealing with a violation of a right-of-way permit. So the way I think of a right-of-way permit, especially if it's one of our right-of-ways and we're liable for that road, and somebody digs a ditch right next to the road, this is not like a complaint from somebody that says my neighbor hasn't cut his weeds. This is about that at any moment, somebody can fall in that trench and the county gets sued. Okay? And so there, in my opinion, there should be a sense of urgency about that. So what do we do? Whether you did that, especially if you did that without a permit, and we need to do something. So with that in mind, there's two things that can happen on a failure to obtain a right-of-way permit. The work is ongoing. Okay, you're doing the work, just like we saw in that picture. We found out on a Friday that somebody's doing the work. What do? Well, we use common sense. Steve Williams and I worked on that, and Steve went out there and put some blinking lights and tape and other things to just make sure that we at least offered the public some notice that that trench was there. Okay, and so in this particular case, if we would issue a cease and desist letter. The work is ongoing. We would issue a cease and desist letter, and we would require permit compliance in 3 days for them to come into the office and comply with the permit. The right-of-way permit fee would double for all requirements of that right-of-way permit. If permit later on, if whatever work has been done that we can't see, we would require potholing. We want to know that something is buried 3 foot deep and where it's located. Okay, so potholing at the expense of the violator, and road repairs would have to be undertaken, and they would not be complete until approved by the county. If it's a traffic hazard, like that road was, the county will take immediate action and charge back. There's no need to think about it. Take immediate action, make the road safe, and they're going to pay for it. For our time, for the traffic control devices, whatever we use. If the permit compliance is not complete in 3 days, if they have not come in to do something, then we'll take another look at the situation and take whatever necessary action we think is appropriate to make the road safe for the long term, not just for the weekend. Then we would be looking at, we want to make this road safe for the long term. This person is not responding. And this is a public road, and we want to make it safe, and we would charge them back for any work that we do. If the permit compliance is not obtained in 7 days, then, and it's a property owner, not a utility, it's a property owner, we would schedule a hearing with a hearing officer, and we would give them 5 days notice and bring them in front of the hearing officer. Okay. If it's a utility company, we would schedule a board meeting to take action to terminate the franchise or the license that may have been issued. And of course, they would still be responsible for the costs that we incur for the restoration of the road. We would file with Superior Court to collect reimbursements for work performed by the county. And again, we would be seeking county attorney. A county attorney does have an opinion on that, and we need to blend that in with what do we do afterwards to collect that money? Because the situation is different than we go cut somebody's weeds down, we put a lien on a property. But we can't put a lien on a public right-of-way. It basically belongs to us. So we'd be putting a lien on ourselves. So if somebody works in our public right-of-way, we need to figure out how do we go back and make sure that we get reimbursement, because the lack of getting reimbursement results in people working on right-of-ways on a weekend. And we need to be meaningful in how we go about making sure that people know if you're gonna violate the right-of-way ordinance, there's a price to pay. Okay. And for the hearing officer, for the property owners, we would be changing the right-of-way ordinance to talk about the typical fee per day, and the typical fee per day that's used by the hearing officer is $700 a day. And I think you also find that in the state statutes. So those are things that we were thinking about incorporating into the ordinance for failing to get a permit, okay? Next slide is, I wanted to talk a little bit about road design. So to have a meaningful discussion on encroachments, we need to look at that. The Gila County Roadway Design Standard Manual does not have a design for a gravel road. What you see here with the green font, that is for a paved road. And I went to that manual and I found the road with the least right-of-way width. And it's a low-volume road that has traffic of 25 miles per hour, and the minimum right-of-way width is 50 feet, okay? And what I'm showing on this slide is a gravel road that measures 40 foot wide. And you see two vehicles, they're approximately sized in scale to this road. The pickup trucks of nowadays, some of them get close to being 7 foot wide, okay? So the ditch is a 2-to-1 slope, 1 foot deep. It's a very shallow, small ditch, basically. There is an area outside of the ditch for utilities placement. And when you add all these components up, it's 40 feet. There is no shoulder on this road, by the way. It's just a travel way, 11 feet. Normally there's 2 foot of shoulder on most roads. So this would be a minimum number, 40 feet. If you look at other counties like Navajo County, the smallest gravel road right-of-way width is 50 foot. And 50 foot is pretty common, okay? So it allows for utilities to be placed outside of the ditch. Otherwise, you're putting the water meter in the ditch if it's something like 24 foot wide. So the next slide shows us a road that's 24 foot wide. And in this particular road, you can see that if you park just one vehicle, and even if you park it in the ditch, you're really obstructing traffic flow, for something that's 24 foot wide. And I just wanted to show that visualization so that we can talk about obstruction on public right-of-ways. And the reason we want to talk about this is we do get numerous complaints about people parking on the roads. And what we do is we struggle with that every time. And each time we try to invent, what do we do in this particular case? What have we done in the past? And we don't necessarily have a policy or a ordinance that directs us in what we should be doing. And I am looking for that prescriptive process, because not having that is, we take up time, we take up the county attorney's time, and we take up a lot of staff time to try to figure out what we do. And oftentimes we end up doing, I'm going to say, nothing, or not acting quick enough. And so I'm looking for, how do we, if we're going to say no, then let's have the no ready to go so that we can tell them, no, we're not doing anything. And that we don't waste the energies and the time. If the expectation is that we do something, then what is that something? Okay. And so what is that something is on this particular slide. If it's a county right-of-way and the road belongs to the public and the county maintains it, and there's an obstruction defined by meaning I can't travel on this road, something like a gate or similar to a gate, and obstruction, then we remove upon discovery. In other words, it's a road we maintain, the public expect to travel on that road, you put something and you're not allowing traffic to go through, road yard, go remove that. It should be that simple, okay? If it's an encroachment where you're impeding the flow of travel and you can't meet the speed, and you no longer can travel two-way traffic at the allowable speed limit. Oftentimes when I think of that, I think of a minimum clearance of 20 feet. And by the way, this was brought up at one of your town hall meetings, Supervisor Christensen, where the fire departments get up and say, we need 20 foot of width on a road to be able to respond. So I'm using that as being a minimum clearance that's required. Anything less than that is an encroachment, okay? So we give them 15 days. If it's an encroachment and it still allows traffic, at least one way, 15-day notice is given to the property owner or is placed on the encroachment. If we don't know who the property owner is and it's a trailer without a license plate, we put it on the trailer, okay? And this, by the way, follows the state statute in the section on transportation that has to do with state highways, but also allows the subdivisions of the state, like the county, to utilize this. The encroachment would be removed and the person responsible after the 15 days, the encroachment would be removed and the person responsible for the encroachment would pay for that cost. Now, if it's some equipment that we can't identify the owner, we may be picking it up and never get paid for it, okay? But if it's a licensed vehicle or a vehicle that's sitting there, we may or may not get paid for it. But so we say, well, are we worried about people paying for us eventually, or are we worried about making this road passable? And so we need to answer that question as we move forward. And we would file with Superior Court to collect reimbursements. And again, the county attorney would like for us to find a different way than to go to Superior Court. And I put that down because it was in the state statute allowing subdivisions of the state to behave like this. But this is still subject to legal review. And again, we're going to take the input from the board, finish writing that ordinance, and get it into the county attorney for their review. So that's for county right-of-ways. Other public roads is an obstruction or an encroachment. We can do the same thing that we have up here, or we can simply tell them, hey, that's an issue that you need to take up with the property, whoever has that property. We don't maintain that road. And again, we've used that in the past for the county. I think the sheriff may have used that. If it's not a county maintained road, we can't do anything. And if that's our position, I'm okay with the positions that we take, but I just want them to be in writing. And again, it's because I don't want to treat one person one way because I'm the director today, another director comes in tomorrow, we treat another person differently. There should be guidance on what do we do for roads that are not maintained by the county and somebody parks on them. So then the last item is I'm going to talk about no parking. Okay, the board could decide it's okay for us to include it in the ordinance or to have a separate resolution that says no overnight parking on any public roads that have widths of 20 feet or less. You park there, you're obstructing that first responder. So park on your property. Okay, that's an option. The other one is, and I'm referring to the road on Pine that I showed you the picture. I think it's Allison Road. The community members, and you saw the cars parked on both sides. It's 35 foot wide. It's a public road. There's no reason why traffic should be obstructed. Community members may come to the board and request no parking on a specific road segment, okay? And it would require a number of property owners to petition the board. It could be something like 50% for property owners that are abutting on the road. It could require a public meeting, and a report from the county engineer, and then based on that, the board could take action that say we're going to post that no parking and a resolution that gives the sheriff the authority to haul those vehicles away based on that designation. And those were some ideas that we think are worth for us to consider, okay? And that's it for my slides. I'm ready to have whatever discussion we need to have at this time.
Okay, first of all, Homer, I would like to thank you very much and all the staff and departments that have put time and energy into your presentation today, because the amount of time and hours and thought and communication between the departments, from engineering to the road department to all the people that worked on this, putting this together to even bring to us, I appreciate the effort, because we do have issues. And up until now, it's like everybody just shrugs their shoulder, looks at engineering, shrugs their shoulder, looks at the road department, shrugs their shoulder, call the SO, say, hey, is there anything we can do? And so, putting time, energy, and effort into this, I think, is it a can of worms? Yes, it is. But is it one that's never been looked at that you are bringing to us with the opportunity to look at it? I appreciate it very much. And so, talking about code enforcement, I think that's great, because we started it for blight, and I appreciate staff working very hard. When I first came on board for blight, our hearing officer and our code enforcement officer were both paid county employees. So if we put a penalty on somebody, we couldn't do anything about it. And so then our planning and zoning is using it for, health, like raw sewage and building without a permit. And so it's great to see that perhaps maybe the road department and these right of ways and some things can also get some use out of the code enforcement. And the fact that we can write people citations and turn them over to a collection agency to be able to right some of these wrongs instead of just shrug your shoulders. Because if there's not any penalties, and I don't mean everybody needs to be penalized, and there's different cases, but if you tell somebody they got to move their car or else, and there's nowhere else, then they're going to park 4 more cars there and give you the peace sign because there's nothing we can do. So I think it's great that you're opening this and giving us the opportunity to move forward on a lot of these. And like you say, you put a lot of time, energy, and effort. And I'm behind you 100% in how you deal with it, like no overnight parking. Okay, I mean, that could be something, or just an hour. On a 20-foot road, you can only park there for 6 hours. Because, what if they work at night, so they park there all day? They're still obstructing our emergency vehicles, but if they're there for a birthday party, we're not penalizing them. They can be there for 6 hours. So, and working on, trying to work with some of these people on so-called paper roads. We've got a lot of issues with that because there was an ordinance in the beginning. And like Quail Ridge in my area, we've got a utility going up that so-called road that's exposed because no maintenance is being done on that because everybody owns a piece of the road and they're all fighting and it ends up in lawsuits. And I even quit wondering what lawsuit's going on now. I used to try to fix it, and it's like some of these lawsuits have got to get over with before we can come to any agreement. And, the county had worked with the utility company to work with them, and they were going to furnish the material, and we were going to do the labor to kind of surface this and get some of the utilities covered. Well, then with the people in lawsuits, we never could obtain all the easements, which is a difficult deal. So on deals like that, if the property owners have agreed at some point in time to have a road on their property, through legal, is there any teeth in that we could, like Supervisor Christian has the issue where not everybody could agree. Well, if they agreed to have a road, is there not something legal that, hey, if you own half of that road, well, then 10 feet of it, you have already said it can be a road. So you can't just say, no, I don't want anything done there because so as we look into this further, is there legally something that there's a road there and somebody gave permission or easement for that road to be there? So is there some legal way that we could make them liable for their original agreement to allow their neighbors to get to their property, and now they're saying no? But anyway, I thank you very much. I agree with a lot of it, and like I say, I didn't disagree with any of it, and I appreciate you looking at it and putting that time and energy and effort, because you are the departments that have put time and energy in this are the ones that deal with this every day on where people are working and how they're working and not obtaining permits. And so, I'm very much in favor of expanding our code enforcement, even if we have to expand our expense of a second code enforcement officer to handle some of the things that we need to deal with in Gila County. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Supervisor Christian, I think I'm finished for now.
Thank you. Homero, I'll extend my thanks to you as well and the staff involved with this. What my impression is that there's just a few changes to the existing ordinance, and I would agree with all of the suggested changes and additions. I do believe that we should have in place on your page number 6 about those that do not have a franchise, to give them, it's kind of a one-off thing. They need to do some digging. They need to put something in. They don't need to wait 4 months to do that to get through a process. So, I mean, if they're going to want to be there for years to come, then they need to have a franchise, but they just need to do one thing. It's okay. My first impression on this photo you have of Ellison Drive, and quite a number of the roads you're speaking of do exist in the Pine and Strawberry Control Road area. These are older communities developed back in the 50s or so. And there's been sort of this understood norm that we're going to park here, we're going to store something here, and the photo you show here, it's more than parking, it's storage. There's people putting their trailers there, and they're turning it into their property. So they're not going to be happy to be told to move that. However, it is a public safety concern if a fire truck can't get down that road or turn back around or do anything. It is not their property. So we need to do, and I realize this is a transition, but it's time, I think, for Gila County and these areas to grow up, in a sense. We are maturing as a county, and this is not 60 years ago when you could do just whatever you wanted and no one really cared or noticed. Now we have much more congestion and public safety and easements and utilities. They need to be able to move and get into these places. So I agree with the changes you're making. I realize there's probably going to be a challenge to enforce. However, we do need to have we need to have it in place. We need to make these appropriate changes. I agree with that, and I do thank you for that.
Thank you.
So is that the end of your presentation?
We're done.
Okay.
Thank you for your input.
Any more comments on that one? Okay. All right. Thank you, Homero.
And as time goes on, if you do have comments, make sure you share them with us.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So we'll move on then to item 2B. And this is information and discussion regarding proposed changes to the Gila County Minor Land Division Ordinance. Good morning, Randy.
Morning, supervisors. By the way, I have 5 slides, so I met Homer's
Okay.
requirements.
Clearly, you get the gold star.
So, by the way, the same staff that they talked about, Scott and Sam and Alex and Homer and me and stuff, been working on this too. So I want to give staff some kudos too. So the ordinance that we're talking about was adopted in 1989. It was last changed, had a minor change in 2006. So there's a state statute that goes along with minor land divisions. That is 11-831. Minor land divisions are land that are split into 5 parcels or fewer and are less than 10 acres. We have a lot of people that split and then resplit and then resplit and then resplit. You're only allowed to do it 5 splits, then you sell it. And then if someone else splits it and there's enough land there, they can do that. But you're not supposed to be doing that in any way to try to get around the subdivision requirements, which is over 5 lots. And again, we have nothing to do with that. That is all through the Department of Real Estate. We have no control or no say over that. So I just wanted to bring that up. We also, it says in the state statute, the county may not deny approval of any land division that meets the requirements of this section. So this is not up to us to just say, we don't like it, we can't deal with it. If they meet the requirements, we are not allowed to deny. And those requirements are: the parcel meets minimum applicable zoning requirements. Now the question is, does that apply to Young? And Young would not be denied because they don't meet zoning ordinance, because there are no zoning ordinances there. Well, there are some, but overall Young does not have zoning, so this would not be denied for not meeting the zoning. The applicants provide a preliminary title report or acceptable document that demonstrates legal access to parcels. Applicant provides a statement from a licensed surveyor or engineer or other evidence acceptable to the county that each parcel has a physical access that is traversable by a two-wheel drive passenger vehicle. We'll get into this a little bit, but basically the physical access is on a statement on the survey that says you can get there by a car. The that's physical. Legal address or access is we're wanting to make a change that it requires a 24-foot road, and Homer just went through that and explained why we would want that. The applicant reserves the necessary and appropriate utility easements to serve each parcel created by a minor land division. An applicant acknowledges that it is unlawful to attempt to avoid the subdivision laws by acting in concert to divide parcels of land into 6 or more parcels. So currently, we're doing most of the stuff, but some of the stuff that's in our ordinance we have not enforced. We have a couple of things we want to add to help enforce this as we move forward. So a record of survey for a minor land division drawn by a land surveyor, meeting all Arizona boundary survey minimum requirements and showing existing and proposed boundaries, access, and utility easements. What currently happens now is when a surveyor draws up a minor land division, they submit that to Scott Warren or Sam, and they do the math, and they make sure those lines close and meet the requirements. Once Scott does that, he also looks over the overall form of it. He ships it to me, and I review and make sure it's meeting zoning. We have access. We have all the stuff required. Nothing's too close to the property lines. Nothing's going over the property lines, and so on. Name and addresses of all properties or parties of interest to the land division. Description of access to the parcels proposed to be divided, and manner access is granted within the statement from the register surveyor stating whether each parcel has physical address and that is transferable by a two-wheel vehicle. Current zoning of the parcels and areas and dimension of all the parcels. That's what we're doing now. Now, the state statute addresses some of the lot line adjustments, but we don't in our ordinance. Our ordinance was dealing with minor land divisions and not lot line adjustments. So we're going to add lot line adjustments in there because that's a pretty common thing that happens a lot here is people add and subtract, and it usually takes 2 or more parcels to do a lot line adjustment. Same thing, lot line adjustment has to be drawn by a surveyor meeting all the Arizona boundary minimum standard and showing existing and proposed boundaries of the access as required. Name and address of both parties of interest to the lot line adjustment. Current zoning of parcels and areas of dimension for all parcels. The next page, which is our this kind of highlights everything. I will tell you that if you look at number 2 there, we wrote right existing improvement structures. We currently have some of that in our ordinance, but it hasn't always been enforced. The one thing I want to make sure we talk about is showing the setbacks. If you'll look at the end of the second line there, what happens is they'll show me a structure on the building, but won't tell me how far it is. So for zoning, you have to have minimum setbacks. Usually that's 20 feet from the front and the rear, and 7 and 7 from the side, or 7 and 9. So we're just getting to clarify that so that there's no misunderstanding. That also helps the people buying the property. They know what they're getting into. If they see something that doesn't meet the zoning requirements, they can deal with that. One of the things, that third line there, that we're wanting to start having the surveyors put on the survey is the FEMA flood zones. As you know, that's a big target that's changing, and people are buying parcels and don't know that they're in the flood. They don't even know how to look that they're in the flood. They don't know that they can go to FEMA and pull up their parcel. Or with during a minor land division, they don't even have a parcel number yet. So they can't see if it's going through there. So as part of the process that we're wanting to make the changes to, is we want to show FEMA on there. One of the things we've talked about, and staff has talked about in moving forward, is wanting to add the topos onto minor land divisions and lot line adjustments. But state statute says we cannot require them to do a independent study of that. But currently the county is looking at doing that across the county. And when that comes into play, we want to come back to you, and we would provide that information to them, to the surveyors, but they would put it on the minor land divisions. And one of the reasons that we came up with is make sure they have a building envelope, right? That they bought this parcel, and it may not have the proper building envelope because it's in the flood or it's on the slopes. You know, there's a lot of things that can come into play, and we want to address that. There will be an added expense here. The surveyors, I'm sure, are going to charge a little bit more to put this information on there. But again, this is helping the person buying the parcel, and it's helping the person selling it, that they don't come into liability either, that, hey, you sold a parcel, it doesn't even have a building envelope on there for a structure to go on. So we're looking at that. There's an acknowledgement. So if they don't meet these requirements that we've talked about, they can still record their easement. They have to put an acknowledgement on there that this parcel will not get a building permit or use permit in moving forward until it comes into compliance. So we're not stopping them from recording it. We're not getting in their way that they think sometimes, but they have to put that statement on there, and then the recorders will record it, and it'll be there. And that way anyone coming and purchasing that property will see that there's no building permits or use permits that's going to be issued until they bring that into compliance and show all those requirements, those 5 requirements that were on there to get approved. If you'll notice up there on the upper right-hand corner, I didn't mention this, the reason we have the LLA highlighted in red is because our current ordinance doesn't address this. We do it, we have been doing it, but we're adding that into the ordinance here. So I just wanted to clarify that. Lot line adjustments are approved once and minor land divisions once we get all the information we need. Currently we have 30 days by state statute and by our ordinance that from when the time the surveyors get it to us, we have 30 days to view all that information and either send it back to them. Like if Scott saw that the math wasn't right, he would send it back to the surveyors. They would address that, resubmit to us. I then look at this, like I said, at the zoning. And I will tell you, we have even taken our staff, once it comes to us and I approve it, we send a notice to the surveyor, bring your Mylar in, I sign the Mylar. Staff even takes that back down to the recorder to get recorded for the surveyors. So, I mean, we're doing everything we can to help this process. And as you know, especially Supervisor Humphrey, Tano is splitting daily. And there have been complaints about some of that. Again, we have no say over that. That is the Department of Realty. But the stuff that does come to us, we want to make sure is correct and as properly documented as possible. One of the good things that we're doing is at the bottom there is you'll say record of survey. So this is basically you own the piece of property, you've had a piece of property, and you just want to verify where your boundaries are. So you pay and you have a record of survey done. Currently, they submit that to Scott again. He does that math. Then it comes to me, and I still look for all the same stuff, but that's not a requirement. So we're taking that record of survey by itself, not a minor land and not a lot line adjustment, just a record of survey. So you're just verifying the boundaries that they don't have to go through us anymore. They can just take that down to the recorder and record it. That way it just opens it up to them. They're not waiting. Because I will tell you, as it comes to me, I look for my, buildings. And if I have a building going across the lot line or as a record of survey, I'm not going to sign that. And in words of the county is saying I'm giving away someone else's property. So now I will agree that a record of survey is just showing the boundaries. The surveyor's not doing anything special. It's just showing the boundaries for that parcel. But we still don't want to be signing it as the county approving that when there may be some issues there. Scott would still do courtesy reviews if they wanted on the ROSs or any of those things. Scott and Public Works has been very gracious in doing courtesy reviews for them to see if they can address any of the issues that someone might have missed. That also makes it better for the county. We get a better map or a better survey in our system, and it's a pretty good thing overall. So the surveyors get a second set of eyes on it, and the county gets better surveys. Next slide. One of the things on the bottom there is because we don't currently have a fee for lot line adjustments because it's not in our ordinance. We wanted to add that fee for the work that gets done, but none of the minor land divisions fees would be changing. This would only be for the lot line. And with that, I'm open for any questions. I went through that pretty quick, but like I said, the ordinance is fairly old, and we're just trying to update it just to adhere to what the county's growing pains are that we have.
Thank you, Randy. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, again, thank you, Randy, because, I've said the whole time, we're only as good as our ordinances. Some of our ordinances were written a long time ago, and they just don't fit in the world we live in today. And as painstaking as it is to change ordinances, I appreciate staff willing to work on changing ordinances so that everybody understands what we're doing and one department's not questioning another, or they get an answer from somebody which changes if they ask another department. So by having these ordinances for everybody to read, I think it's a great thing, because with our state growing as it is, Gila County's going to grow. And I think trying to get ahead of some of the curve to help protect people from investors and from themselves in what they think they want to do with the property they just bought, that the people they bought from knew they couldn't do anything, and that's why they gave them a good deal on the property. So again, I thank all the staff very much for the I can attitude, and let's try to help instead of say, well, there's nothing we can do because we're just following our ordinances, even though we have old ones. And yeah, we are growing up north and now in Tano, and I've, hope sometime in the future we can get some growth growing around here, so. Just thank you for again, time, energy, and effort in trying to make our complaint list go down, because our ordinances, read our ordinances and don't call us because somebody said something and somebody said something else. It's like, and having information on property surveys, I think, is important, because there have been people that call me and they didn't know when they bought it. So darn the realtors and darn the investors, but we're trying to help, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks, Randy, for putting this together. I don't disagree with any of the changes you're making, really, and we do need to work on that. Help me to understand. Obviously, if there's a minor land division, there must be something called a major land division. So why are we limited to 5 on a minor land division, 10 acres or less, 5 parcels? Why can't we do 20? Why?
You are not limited. You can do 20, you just become a subdivision.
Okay,
And you
it
have to
just
meet
requires
those
a different
requirements.
set of rules.
Correct.
A different, so these people that are, maybe they're friends or whatever, but they're buying a property, they divide it, then they sell it, and then that person divides it. They could forego all of that if they went to a subdivision dynamic. Is it more expensive to do that?
There's more steps.
Okay,
And then you're gonna have to deal with roads, utilities. There's a lot of, that would require water, and you have to have the 100-year water supply for subdivisions. So there's a lot more to it, to do subdivisions. But again, the state statute, and it's very clear that you can't sell it to your buddy to try to get around the requirements of the subdivision. But we have no authority
right.
in doing that. And I've, at the direction of our county attorney, I filed complaints when people come and say, hey, this is becoming a subdivision out here. And I would agree with them. But again, I can only file the same complaint as anyone else can.
Okay.
If anyone ever thinks there's a subdivision going in, they all can file the same paperwork that I do, that goes to Department of Realty, and they may or may not investigate. I'm sure they're busy too. But it does not limit them. It just limits them for the minor land division.
Sure, and that's a suspicion that may occur, that we're not going to chase that one down. But let's say you have then a major section of land. I have 100 acres now. What is the process there to divide that?
So again, it depends on how you want to divide it. You could divide it into 5 20-acre parcels and then sell your 20-acre parcels to whoever.
Or go the subdivision
Or,
route?
or make a subdivision and put a couple hundred houses out there.
Okay, good. Last thing, I do believe we need to be charging for any services that we provide. So to do the $200 lot line adjustment, I think makes sense that we charge for that. Does it cost us more time and energy to do 2 parcels, 3 parcels, 4 parcels, 5 parcels? Is there a difference there?
There is a difference because each parcel has to verify that they have physical and legal access, the zoning requirements that go along there, any of the utilities that come across there. When you have 5 parcels and you're putting them in, a lot of times you have a well. And then they want to run water line across all those, so then we have to go back and check easements and everything on each parcel and have to record them individually. So it does take more time when there are multiple parcels.
We've discussed in the past where you're concerned from time to time to make sure that we're charging enough so that we can operate the department without a huge deficit. So I guess the reason I ask that is, could we not just charge $650 for any land divisions, period? Whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, just charge the same fee? Or would that be something we'd end up with profiting or doing something like that? It's only $150 difference. And to me, it seems like if you're going to divide your land one fee would be enough.
That is certainly up, and we can bring that back when we bring the ordinance back, that we would look at that. And we can track the numbers down to make sure that we're not profiting off this, that we're just covering our cost. I mean, obviously, that would be easier for staff too, and even the landowners that they just, write one check and be done with it, and they've done their thing. So yes, I certainly can look at that. I don't have the actual numbers that I could tell you right now that exactly what they are, but we could look at that.
The reason I ask is because you say we're not changing these fees, and this is an ordinance that's aging. And as it's aging, then that means we're getting more and more behind the number, the amount that we need to charge perhaps. And we're running into that with the landfill, we're running into that with other departments. And so, anyway, I think we have another participant.
Just to chime in on your permit fees, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Humphrey, Randy, with your permission, we will have a contract coming to the board next month for the company that will be analyzing all of our fees countywide and coming back to you with recommendations about what those ought to be based on real costs and future cost expectations.
Well, it's helpful to know that. Thank you so much,
You're
Maren.
welcome.
Okay, so I don't have any other questions. Any more comments on what we've done on this item?
Okay?
I don't have, I have one more question, Mr. Chair, if I may, and I don't want you to answer it. But it's a question that I'm sure if we have people on, that I'm gonna get asked, why does Young not have zoning requirements? I'm not gonna ask you to answer that today. Supervisor Klein is out. But I'm sure with us talking about growing and minor land divisions and things of that nature, that is a question that I'm going to be asked. But I don't want you to answer it today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an interesting area of the county, for sure. Okay, thank you, Randy, so
Thank
much
you.
for that. Okay, do we have enough time left, Joseph, for you today?
We don't want you late for lunch.
Let's move on to item 2C, and that would be information discussion regarding the past, present, and future of the Michelson Building. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. In the past month, we have strengthened the IGA with the City of Globe and other collaborating with other stakeholders. We would like to regroup and outline a path forward to achieve this. We would like to take a look at the past, where we're at, and where we're moving forward. I'll try and keep it as quick as I can.
Thank you.
Nestled in the heart of Globe, Arizona, the Michelson Building at 157 South Broad Street stands as a beacon of history and transformation. Built in 1929 by the renowned James P. Michelson, who also designed the iconic Masonic Hall. The 7,980 square foot building was initially a grocery store with an open air market that housed Safeway. Over the years, it passed through multiple hands from George and Margaret Leach in 1959. By 1991, Gila County acquired the property for $150,000. And in 1994, it was transformed into child support and county attorney investigator's office, solidifying its role in serving the community. Gila County's acquisition marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Michelson Building. Its pivotal role in hosting critical county services like child support and legal offices showcased the adaptability and value of the historic structure. However, in 2015, as departments moved to the courthouse and Guerrero Building, the Michelson Building stood vacant, awaiting its next opportunity to serve the people of Globe and Gila County. The transformation of the Michelson Building is a true partnership between Gila County and the City of Globe, demonstrating the power of collaboration to revitalize historic infrastructure. Gila County, as the builder's owner, have invested over $300,000 in renovation efforts to date, underscoring its commitment to preserving the structure and preparing its future use. Simultaneously, the City of Globe has been instrumental in securing grants and driving the vision for the building future. In 2018, City of Globe's Linda Audinetto spearheaded the project, collaborating with Matt Glover of Co-Hoots. whose urban renewal efforts in Mesa served as inspiration. This partnership sparked the idea of the transformation of the Michelson Building into a business incubator and shared workspace, setting the stage for an innovative and growth in Globe's downtown. Together, Gila County and City of Globe have successfully secured significant funding, including a $650,000 Build Back Better Initiative grant, USDA Rural Economic Development Initiative Fund. The support from Freeport, Macaran, Resolution Copper, as we have mentioned in the past, have been great partners. These combined efforts reflect a balance of collaborative approach to revitalizing the Michelson Building for the benefit of the entire community. The renovation of the Michelson Building is progressing steadily. First, starting off with the roof replacement, as you can see here in the slides. Early abatement efforts addressed significant hazards, including the removal of lead-based paint and asbestos, ensuring compliance with contemporary safety standards. Looking ahead, the next phase will focus on mold abatement and the demolition of non-essential interior infrastructure, which will pave the way for the building's transformation into a vibrant business incubator. These projects are fully contracted and set to commence in December and finishing in early February, marking a crucial step in the renovation timeline. With these efforts alongside the 2023 roof replacement and the ongoing structural upgrades, the Michelson Building is on track to become a safe, functional, and inspiring cornerstone of Globe's downtown revitalization. On the slide here, we cut through and outline some of the critical infrastructure, what's supporting the facility. Most of the building's walls on the interior are non-load bearing, so that is a large portion of what will be removed. The transformation of the Michelson Building is about more than bricks and mortar. It's a revitalization of Globe's historic downtown, a spark for economic development. The path forward as we look into the future for the Michelson Building relies on a strong partnership between the City of Globe and Gila County Facilities teams. Together, we are working to develop a clear and actionable plan for a design build project that will bring the shared vision for the historic structure to life. While the City of Globe will serve as a primary entity responsible for funding and contracting the project, the Gila County Facilities team will continue to play a critical role as advisors and oversee the construction management process. Our expertise will ensure that the project executed effectively, maintaining both the historical integrity of the building and the functionality as a modern business hub. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Joseph. Supervisor Humphrey?
Yeah, I don't have many questions, Joseph, because I've asked them as we've gone along with this building. It's something that, and we had a presentation just here a while back with the investors in the building, and I appreciate all of the people that are willing in kind of revitalizing the downtown area. And not only that, it's great to have the working relationship with the City of Globe and Freeport to be able to all work together on a building that we all can use, or like you say, for young entrepreneurs, for helping them have office space and things as they want to get started. So it's too bad that it got in the shape that it did before we started partnering up and getting it fixed, but it will be a great project when we get it finished. And like I say, to help build the relationships with our other partners in it. So thank you for your update today and some of the history. I didn't realize some of the history of it, although I know about 55 years of it, but thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Humphrey.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Joseph, for you and everyone involved. this is one of those things where you either fix it or tear it down. It's a building that's aging and just needs a lot of care.
Yes, sir.
And so as we go through that care, I see here on one of your pages of partnership that the city of Globe is contributing a lot, 1.4 million. Is that what I'm reading right there? And so will that be enough to complete the planned project with all of the offices and bathrooms and everything that you have planned for it?
With that, sir, we're highly confident in that estimate. With that being said, there's still a lot of work that needs to happen, such as the design. And when we go through that design, we're really going to have a better understanding of what that scope is.
Yeah. I see the concepts here. You have a page on concepts. And pretty extensive, looks really good, so I like the front. Looks modern and vibrant, and I think it's a great thing that we're saving the building and going to put it to good use, so
Yes, sir.
thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one more. Whom is going to do the design? And I can see kind of the breakdown design, and so you said do the design on one picture. It looks like it's already been pretty much done. Is that done just a hand drawing to kind of give something of what it might be, and it's not any part of an actual design?
Supervisor Humphrey, that's a great question. Yes, on your last point, it's just a concept to give inspiration of what it could look like.
Okay, but going forward with an engineering company, I would guess, on who's gonna do the design, this is kind of what you're gonna give them for what all the partners would like to see out of the building?
This is, when we do give it to them, it'll be just as a concept. After we get input from stakeholders, that's what's really going to determine the layout and what it's going to look like.
Okay, and when do you think the stakeholders are gonna get together to kind of give engineering? It seems to me, working with engineers in the past, if you give them an open sheet, then gosh only knows what you're gonna end up with, bronze statues in the middle of the wall or some darn thing. So anyway, I guess going forward, when are the stakeholders gonna get together to kind of give some perimeters of a design company?
We'll be working with the team to look at establishing that, sir.
Okay, in the next 6 months, next year and a half, next?
It'll be in the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good. Thank you.
No problem.
Great. Well, I don't know that I have any more questions on that. I'm glad we're proceeding with it.
Thank you.
And so, thanks for all your effort.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay. Went a little faster than I thought, which is great, so let's keep moving on. Item 3 is a call to the public. Cassandra, do you have anybody that wants to say anything on the internet there? No? How many do we have today? We're at 30. 30, that's great. Okay, anyone here locally in Globe that wishes to address us call to the public? No? And Tyler, anyone in Payson?
Nobody in Payson, Supervisor.
Okay, great. So let's move on to item number 4, which is our reports. Manager Menlove.
Mr. Chairman, 2 things I'd like to bring up today. First of all, at a season of gratitude, I wanted to express appreciation to Gila County employees. We have many great employees that are committed to service to the public. I appreciate them. We all appreciate them, and the work that they do to hopefully make things better for the citizens of Gila County. Did want to acknowledge the Board of Supervisors as a part of the budget was included a 2% merit raise increase for departments. And it'll be similar to what was done last year, that departments will be allowed a lump sum 2% of their salaries budget to administer as they see fit, intended as when there are some issues of compression, that we may be able to address some of those. It may be it typically would be tied to a merit increase so that departments can, based on personnel evaluations, employee evaluations, that they can give raises to those that are a step ahead and a step above others, that they will have that flexibility at the department level. So thank you to the Board of Supervisors for allowing that and looking out for our employees, that we can hopefully give a little bit more, 2% in January. It'll be the first full pay period in January, meaning the second paycheck, employee's second paycheck in January, that those will take effect. Wanted to acknowledge the Gila County Provisional Community College District. There's an article in the Arizona Silver Belt, so I think I can go ahead and speak to that, that there's been significant progress made in the community college district. We're thankful for them because education is important to our youth that live here in Gila County. And this is a great opportunity that it is the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges. Peer review team came to both campuses of the community college district, Payson and Globe. And there is a report that will be due out in January that will give an assessment of where the college is at. And it gave 3 options, but I think there's a great hope that the college will continue to move forward, and that there's great hope to Gila County, that as an educational entity for Gila County, that there's progress being made and that we're moving forward. So I express appreciation to the board of the Community College District and to all those that have worked so hard to continue to work and see that there is an educational opportunity for the kids and youth and adults that all participate in the Community College District. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Humphrey.
Well, on that note, yeah, it's great to see them moving forward, trying to reach out on their own. They went through an awful lot of heat, but I'm glad to see that the heat in the kitchen is creating a brighter future for not only the people, but our education curriculum that they will be able to work with. And so that's good. And other than that, I have nothing other than I would like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and to have a safe and happy holiday. And then this is a time of year for me where life slows down a little bit and enjoy things in life and pick up the fight in January. But I wish everybody a safe, happy holiday.
Thank you, and yeah, I'll add to that and say thank for everyone here this meeting. It was a good meeting. We have 2 more this year, next week, and I think the week, 2 weeks after that or something, the 3rd and the 17th, if I remember right, and then we're done for the year. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and be safe and enjoy your Thanksgiving. And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.